It's like deja vu all over again. This is episode 11, but it might well be called episode 10A. It's largely an extended version of episode 10, where we tried to show only scenes that were essentially presented as originally written by J.R.R. Tolkien, rather than by Peter Jackson and Company.
Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear.
The format we used in episodes 1 through 9. Greetings. Welcome to This, That, and the Other, where I react to, respond to, comment on, question, or otherwise propound on whatever I find of interest on any given day. Now, today's topic This episode will include most of the scenes and commentary from episode 10, but also contain Jacksonian scenes and commentaries on them. It's a little hard to explain, but you'll catch on quickly.
We interrupt this program for a special announcement. Professor Tolkien stated in the foreword to the Fellowship of the Ring, quote, "This tale grew in the telling." Likewise, this video grew in the production. It has grown beyond a half hour, which is totally untenable. Therefore, despite my intention to make episode 11 the extended edition of episode 10, it's become episodes 11 and 12. Best laid plans of mice and all that. But while I've got your attention, YouTube harasses content creators to beg for likes and subscriptions. Now, I see no benefit in it. I've avoided doing this because I address a very niche interest. And the chances of my channel getting 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of viewing time, which is the minimum requirements for monetization, they're minimal. Now, if you want to, go ahead and click those buttons. And please, watch more than the first 3 or 4 minutes of the video. I know I tend to ramble at the beginning, but the videos usually require some explanation. They get better as they progress. If you do want to show some appreciation, click the Amazon link in the description and go buy something. We return you now to our regularly scheduled ramblings and tirades.
Most of the scenes and sequences in this film are quite long. Those that can't conveniently be edited down or modified enough to pass inspection will simply be shown as the first few seconds and the last few seconds, maybe with some verbal descriptions or a still shot or caricature or something in between. And if anything else comes to mind along the way, I'll let you know. As previously established in episode 9 and chapter 6, Éowyn led the non-combatants, women, children, elderly, and infirm, to Dunharrow, another of Rohan's strongholds, about 30 miles south. Theoden, with Éomer, who was not banished, Gandalf, who has not left the company yet, and Aragorn by his side, led the riders to Helm's Deep, about 50 miles north. Therefore, the first 18.5 minutes of the film is mainly nonsense. One point that passes is that Gandalf leaves at what would be about 4 minutes in. Gandalf did not call his shot at dawn on the 5th day in the east. He merely said, await me at Helm's Gate.
I will be continuing to flag the scenes I show as appropriate by adding captions to the clips, but more discreetly than last time. Not in book, slightly modified, somewhat modified, or heavily modified. Or none at all if it's pretty close, or the once or twice that it's actually accurate. In case of a tie, the book wins. I may add a scene missing caption, where a scene from the book should be in the film, but isn't.
Thank you.
Ah, delicious lard stew.
70? You cannot be 80.
87.
I checked. According to Appendix B of The Return of the King, The Tale of Years, Aragorn was actually 88 by a day or two. He was born March 1st, 2931. Gandalf appeared to the Three Hunters in Fanghorn on March 1st, 3019. The Battle of the Hornburg was March 3rd. Now, since this scene didn't actually happen, it's hard to say when it was that it didn't happen. But from the surrounding chronology, it most likely would have been March 2nd. Aragorn was probably too busy to remember yesterday was his 88th birthday, or something.
And as far as wargs go, there's only one mention of them.
The riders were still in the low valley before the mouth of the Coombe, when cries and horn blasts were heard from their scouts that went in front. Out of the darkness, arrows whistled. Swiftly a scout rode back and reported that wolf riders were abroad in the valley, and that a host of orcs and wild men were hurrying southward from the fords of Isen and seemed to be making for Helm's Deep.
There was no actual attack on the riders themselves. Now, another existential problem. Since there was no attack, Hama was not killed here. He lasted until Helm's Deep. Now, from here to there, though, his part was covered by his buddy Gamling, who was not the Gamling in the book. That Gamling was, quote, an old man, the leader of those that watched the dike at Helm's Deep.
And wargs are overly large, overly aggressive, and overly evil wolves, not some sort of weird bear-hyena hybrid.
This has always been made clear all the way back to The Hobbit. Where Jackson got the idea for these other monsters is beyond me.
Arwen. What a dilemma. On one hand, one of the extremely few things that I don't agree with is Tolkien's treatment of her. She's so crucial to understanding Aragorn's motivations, she really should have a bigger part in the book. But she doesn't. She's pure and simple, not in the book. And neither are any of these dreams or visions. Even the tale of Aragorn and Arwen in the appendices hardly mentions her. And there are no mentions of any of the romantic moments Peter Jackson is so fond of. Same for Elrond, except this discussion is condensed from the appendix and modified a bit. Elrond bluntly states, quote, "She shall not be the bride of any man less than the king of both Gondor and Arnor," unquote.
And Legolas's gravity-defying mount of Gimli's horse is just ridiculous. Now, if he had swung to his left and up, I could buy it. But grabbing the harness with his right hand and swinging up to the right, I don't care what world we're on, or what universe we're in, or what semi-supernatural being he is. That's just impossible. As has been pointed out by many film fantasy fans, if you don't see the body, he isn't dead.
The wolves of Isengard will return.
Note, Theoden says the wolves of Isengard, not the bear hyena beasts of Isengard.
Well, you have to know these things when you're a king, you know.
Tens of thousands.
But, my lord, there is no such force.
Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
He's always lies. He has a mind from Isengard these days.
Isengard?
There was a time when Saruman would walk in my woods. He's always smoke lies. He has a mind from Isengard.
Everything in Fanghorn happened 3 chapters ago, not chopped up and scattered around. So this heavily modified scene caption indicates relocated. Now, Treebeard's comments about Saruman are accurate, just an hour too late. Since there was no battle with wargs, Aragorn could not have fallen off the cliff and floated downstream. And since Arwen does not appear in the book at all, her vision could not have prayed to the Valar to save Aragorn. And since Aragorn never set him free, the non-existent Brago the Wonder Horse could not have rescued him. Aragorn was with Theoden and the non-banished Éomer the whole time.
I joke, but Brago really does have a story, and quite a long one. Too long, in fact, to include here. Go to www.brego, brego.net for more. He was truly a horse fit for a king.
Needless to say, this episode with Arwen and Elrond, along with all the others, is pure Jacksonian fiction. Likewise, the telepathic communication between Galadriel and Elrond. But the video of Frodo and Sam being led under the waterfall is accurate, and makes a nice segue to the next heavily modified scene.
Take the ring for his own, and the world will fall.
We're 27 minutes into the second half of the film, and we've already wasted 10.5 minutes on 3 elves who aren't in the book.
We set out from Rivendell with 7 companions. 2 were my kin.
The sequence with Faramir is a problem.
And 2 men.
At various times, parts of it fall into all categories, and they are so thoroughly mixed, it's really not worth the effort to separate them. The main takeaway is that he was much more understanding in the book.
He was my brother.
Give Jackson credit for one thing, though. The flashback to Faramir's dream is nicely done. Very artsy.
The entire Boromir, Denethor, Osgiliath flashback is another of Jackson's fevered dreams.
Bring me back this mighty king.
Jackson likes to change characters' basic personalities. He made Saruman, Faramir, and now Denethor much creepier than in the book. But one part shows some things never change.
Welcome
Smeagol's capture is pretty close, but he was not beaten so much back in the cave.
Capture fish so juicy.
To answer many questions, yes, there was a forbidden pool at the foot of the waterfall that screened the cave entrance. It wasn't so much the pool itself, but just being in the vicinity could be fatal to strangers.
It's been stated elsewhere that David Wenham was so nervous about holding a sword to Frodo's neck, they had a stuntman stand in for him for those shots.
The ring will go to Gondor.
This is not Faramir. This is Peter Jackson speaking.
As I've mentioned before, a number of characters have been tested by the ring. So far, only Boromir has failed. Now Faramir has the ring practically in his grasp. But
fear no more. I would not take this thing, if it lay by the highway. Not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her, so, using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory. No, I do not wish for such triumphs, Frodo, son of Drogo.
And a bit later, when Sam accidentally says a few things he really shouldn't have, Faramir confirms.
Alas for Boromir. It was too sore a trial. Not if I found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, and even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, still I should take those words as a vow, and be held by them.
I'll take that as a pass. But Faramir does release Frodo, Sam, and reluctantly Gollum.
Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No Aragorn and Brago barely making it to Helm's Deep. Just another excuse for more New Zealand Tourism Board propaganda. And whether it happened or not, and it didn't, that's one hell of an entrance.
I want every man and strong lad, able to bear arms, to be ready for battle by
The
nightfall.
every man and strong lad line was actually said in the previous chapter, back when the Rohirrim were preparing to leave Edoras. Preparations for the attack aren't really mentioned that much, and it's the non-banished Éomer, not Theoden, doing it. And Gimli's comments are about the stonework, not a critique of tactics.
The Ents have not troubled about the wars of men and wizards for a very long time.
Yeah, more Fanghorn, which should have been back in episode 8.
We must decide if the Ents will go to war.
I'm to be sent with the women into the caves.
Sheesh, Éowyn. Would you like some cheese with that wine?
These are no soldiers.
Most have seen too many winters.
Or too few.
The too many, too few winters line was said by the real Gamling as the riders approached.
No elvish archers, no matter how moving the moment is.
Let me get this straight. Haldir shows up bringing word from Elrond. But Haldir is one of the Lothlorien elves. So where are the rest from? Rivendell or Lothlorien or both? I'm confused. But since it didn't happen, it doesn't really matter.
And thus we come to the end of episode 11. Stay tuned for episode 12, which, although proceeding immediately from this point, will take a few days to prepare. Thank you for your understanding and patience.